Thank you for tuning in and welcome back to the Sandwich of Coherency. So let's just go ahead and jump right into this. Um, Earlier this week, the House Oversight Committee was having hearings on the strategic petroleum reserves. And the Democrats, the White House, pretty much have put forth a witness to mind. Okay, so wait, before I get into this, we, we have the reserve in case there's an emergency. So now, and you're going to hear some shit that's just going to blow your mind. But the whole point of this guy's appearance is to argue against the U.S. having the petroleum reserve. It absolutely makes no sense. And this idea that they're trying, again, like we've talked, I've just gone over this so many times, but this whole idea to push the United States into this whole electric green revolution scam that they're going for. Okay. And again, the point is they have nothing in place to replace it. And it's this idea in their mind that 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, we will have what we want in place to make our dream come true. But in the time now between now and then, well, there's going to be suffering. Okay, that the whole, I mean, my gosh. Let's just go ahead and jump right into this.
I recognize myself for my 5 minutes. So let's talk, we heard about facts. So let's talk about some facts, indisputable facts. January 20th, 2021. The national price for gasoline on average was $2.39. That's when this administration began. That is a fact. How about another fact? On February, I believe it was February 24th, 2022, Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine. That was the Putin price hike. Except in a little, it's to an inconvenient truth, to quote someone that wrote a book about that about 20 years ago, was the fact that the price of gasoline at that time was $3.52 national average. It was 47% higher before Vladimir Putin crossed into Ukraine. So who's going to own up on that? And at its peak, it was at $5 a penny, which was a 110% increase from what he inherited. And today, even today, after all this miraculous intervention by the Biden administration, it's still $3.41. It's 38% higher. So another thing, another fact, an inconvenient one, this is why we're having a hearing about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, is it was only drawn down 3 times. And when it was drawn down, Desert Storm, 1991, 17 million barrels. 2005, Hurricane Katrina, that was a catastrophe in Louisiana, 21 million barrels. And then the military intervention in Libya in 2011 was 31 million barrels. And then Joe Biden, it's not 16 or 17 or 20, it's 227 million barrels. That's a 10 times multiplier in the reduction. And then this interesting question about how the energy security can be best achieved with renewables. I have no problem with the renewables. I don't know any of my Republican colleagues that do. I'm all for wind and solar. I'm for a comprehensive, realistic approach because I can tell you that I'm going to get on my unicorn and ride it to a pool to visit my mermaid that was financed by a leprechaun because that is pie in the sky and it's not reality. The fact that the President of the United States in his State of the Union said we're going to need fossil fuels for maybe 10 more years. Well, heck, I'd love to say that we're not going to need them next year, but that's not the reality. And I can't wait if we're here 10 years from now because it's going to be very little is going to change. And even when you make a transition, that takes a decade or two. There's 200 countries on the planet. Mr. Drummer, why isn't any of them doing what you just said? If it's more efficient and more cost affordable, renewables should be dominating the industry right now, dominating the energy sector. Why aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, it's honestly because there's too much money to be made is why my co-witnesses are here. It's
no.
You're holding. There's too much money to be made in the short term.
Oh, hold on.
That's what it is.
I reclaim my time.
That is just
I reclaim
reality.
my time. That is absolute leftist bunk. And this is why. And respectfully, because not everybody's in the oil and gas industry. If you're in the energy sector and you can make dough on providing wind and solar, why wouldn't you do it? Yeah, that's a rhetorical question. That's obvious. Mr. Epstein, they do it when they have incredible subsidies. If they're just doing it with their own money, that would be one thing. Energy security. Renewables going to do it for us? We're going to be reliant on China?
I mean, it is just crazy that we can talk about solar and wind being incredibly energy secure when the supply chain is just completely dominated by China, which they can cut it off at a moment's notice. So they can destroy the whole thing. So that's one. And then two is, this is very important when we hear these bizarre claims of cheapness. Solar and wind cannot replace fossil fuels. So solar and wind are unreliable, intermittent sources of electricity, not all energy. Electricity, they can go to near zero at any given time, which is why they need near 100% backup. So when you have solar and wind, you can't look at the price of the panels and the wind turbines. You have to look at the price of the backup.
Again, we've said it time and time again, and he hit the nail right on the fucking head. It is a fiction, you know. But you know, the witness starts off with this nonsense. There's too much money to be made in the short term. Obviously, you can tell he's not very business oriented, because that's a very leftist ideal to only think about business in the short term, and that's how a lot of their wow. But anybody who's thinking about these things is thinking on the long term. They're not thinking about, oh, I can make a whole lot right now. No, I want to make a whole lot and keep making a whole lot. We're not just going to worry about today. We need to worry about today, tomorrow, the next day, and the day after that. So if there were that much money to be made in it, it would be done. And let's think about this. All right, this whole idea is nothing new. You know, the solar panels, the electric idea, all of this, just the electric vehicles and everything. This is nothing new. And the thing is that, yes, the government's pushing this idea, but let's be honest, the government doesn't really create. Private industry creates. The government just regulates, because they would have done it already. I mean, think about this. How many decades has the governments of the world been throwing this nonsense at you? How many decades do they keep saying this over and over again? And if there is such a huge problem that they know, that they believe to be so, why have they not taken any of the billions upon billions, trillions of dollars in taxes that they've taken from people and done the innovation needed to actually make this possible? I mean, it really could, if that's the case, it could be done. But no, they're saying that, whoa, you have to understand the businesses have not done it. We need to encourage them to do it. You take everybody's money through taxes, and you're telling them they need to do this, so why don't you do the research to do it? But let's get into this next one. We're going to get into the one with Byron Donalds, because Byron Donalds, he's on fire.
A couple things. Look, if you're going to look at the costs for any American, especially Americans on the lower end of the socioeconomic spectrum, rising energy costs cripple them more than anybody else. I would assume every witness can agree to that, correct? Can we all agree to that? Okay. Mr. Drummer, I was reading through your testimony during all of the opening statements that we have in our committees. You say that fossil fuel costs are unsustainable. Why is that?
It's the data that I just shared, right? And so even today, yes, gasoline is, as of the latest February 14th or so CPI report, up 1.5%, but that's off of the historic high from last year, right? This is gouging folks' pocketbooks.
Mr. Drummer,
Again, the bottom
I'm
two
going to reclaim
quintiles
time now, because I'm going to ask you this question. Are fossil fuel costs more expensive in the United States just because of the cost of actually drilling for and refining fossil fuel products, or is it also because of government regulation with respect to fossil fuel products?
the bottom two quintiles of earners pay 15 to 25% of their income.
But I'm asking you what makes it more expensive. Is it just purely the procurement costs of fossil fuel, or is it also the regulatory burdens on fossil fuel?
It is the global fossil fuel market that we do not control. When there is chaos happening in Europe and Ukraine because of Russia's invasion,
Okay, but
that hits American
But Mr. Drummer,
pocketbooks.
people have been drilling for oil and using gasoline long before Vladimir Putin went into Ukraine. We've seen rises and falls in gasoline prices. Let me ask you this. You say in your statement that renewables are actually the most cost efficient form of energy. That's what you say in your statement. Is that because renewable energy is largely subsidized by most nations in the world, or is that because the actual per unit cost is being borne by the consumer? Is it the subsidy or is it the full cost? What makes it most cost efficient?
This is a great point you bring up, Representative, because actually fossil fuels are heavily subsidized, more so than renewables right now, and still renewables are more price competitive.
I'm not sure what you're talking about, Mr. Drummer. You need to go back and check your facts.
I'll be happy
Hold
to
on.
share the data with you after
Real
this
quick,
hearing.
I want to move on to a couple things. Do you think we need more refineries in the United States, yes or no?
Absolutely not.
So you do realize that without more refineries in the United States, the cost of fuel for all citizens, especially those at the lower two quartiles of the socioeconomic spectrum, are going to suffer as a result. You do realize that.
Fossil fuel markets are a global market. We do not control the price of oil in the
But
U.S.
you do realize,
Cannot drill our
hold
way
on,
out
but
of
you do
energy
realize
security.
that the supply of oil that goes to refineries in the United States, if you limit the capacity of refineries or continue to not allow them to expand or to actually get the necessary maintenance, they're going to have less output capacity in the United States, which means all the products we use with fossil fuels, not just gasoline, the very glasses you wear, the very contact lenses I'm wearing, those are derivatives of oil and petroleum as well. So you do realize that by not allowing for new refineries, you're going to increase the costs on the very people we're all trying to help?
I think, again, we're talking about energy security.
Well, I would agree. This is energy security.
Right.
Because if you want to make sure that the costs for the people who have to buy product, poor people, they don't have escape velocity. You know what I mean? They don't have that. So is it prudent to not allow for the things necessary to keep costs low in the name of the Green New Deal? Is that prudence?
It is imprudent to double down on a losing strategy of drilling our way to energy security. It's not possible.
Mr. Drummond, do you realize that America was energy secure literally 4 years ago? America was energy secure.
America was not energy
We
secure
were actually
4 years ago.
Mr. Drummond, do you not acknowledge the fact that we were exporting oil to other parts of the world in the United States? We were exporting.
Absolutely. We were exporting
4
natural
years ago.
gas last year when prices were going through the roof. It did nothing for domestic consumers of that natural gas. This is a global market, and to insulate American households and our country from all the vagaries and chaos of the world, the best thing we can do, the most prudent thing we can do is invest in batteries,
Mr.
and
Drummond.
renewable.
Wow. I mean, this guy's talking about fucking batteries. But what about, again, the things that people use on a daily basis are really are derivatives of petroleum. Now there's so many industries that really actually work off of the petrol waste. So many of the products, I mean, it's in a lot of things. There's really not too many things in the world that don't use petrol waste. Now this is the important part here. This is the crazy kicker of it. If you don't want the petroleum drilling, you don't want to drill for oil and all that, okay? It's fine, okay? Say we do that, that's fine. Everything that's made from the petrol waste, what do you replace it with? Like, this is a really important question. And I just wonder, how much of the materials that are used to make solar panels and the things that we use to make the products to generate renewable energies, how much of that is born from petrol waste? Because if you go into any facility, not everything is metal. There's a whole lot of things that are plastic and rubber. Oh my fucking word. Oh my word. And alright, let's go ahead and jump into this last one here because I think you'll find this one very interesting round of questioning.
Chair recognizes Mr. Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Drummer, you just kind of mentioned first of all, were you alive during the 1970s era gas crisis? Just out of curiosity, I don't know, so I'm just asking.
I wasn't born yet.
You weren't, but you do acknowledge that that was the reason for the construction and the development, the advent of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, right? You'll acknowledge that, right?
Yes.
And do you know what precipitated that? Why did we do it? Why did America do it?
I'd like to follow your point here. Would you like to elaborate? I mean, why
did we
do what?
create a Strategic Petroleum Reserve?
I'm gonna pause it right there. I don't know if you've noticed, but the smugness of this guy. I mean, look, I'm not one to say, like, you slap the shit out of somebody, but how can you not look at him and want to slap the shit, to slap that smug look off his face, like he's being a fucking jackass? And I hate that shit. Like, why can't people just come, and just be straight up, hey, answer the fucking question. You know the fucking answer, but you want to be calm. Breathe. Let's get back into it.
What was happening at
There
the
was
time?
an energy crisis that was outside of our control.
Okay, and who was controlling it?
The cartel of states that are the primary energy producers.
In the Middle East, right? The
Right.
cartel of states in the Middle East. Now, they said there was an energy crisis. I was alive at the time. And they said there was an energy crisis and we're actually running out of oil. That's what they said. There was a limited supply and it was all going to run out and the prices were going up and you couldn't get it. You could only buy gas odd and even days based on your license plate. I lived through the whole thing. And so we created this Strategic Petroleum Reserve to counteract the global market's control over it, right? Would you agree?
I'm following you.
Okay, you're following me. Okay, so, and I would acknowledge you say it's a global market, which you said it's a global market, right? But you just said, my colleague from Ohio, you just said that when the president released oil from the SPRO, that it actually reduced cost. Did you not?
I'm citing the majority's witness on who acknowledges that of all the factors, that definitely did play a role.
Did
Not
it
an
reduce-
outsized role, but
did
it played a
reduce the
role.
cost or not? That's what I'm asking. Did it reduce the cost or not?
It did.
Okay.
But the majority is arguing
Okay,
that
so it
that
reduced the
should not have
cost,
been.
but
Do you see what I mean? Like really, you're just wasting people's time with your presence.
Done.
But
And that-
prior to this, with Mr. Donald, you said it's a global market and there's nothing we can do to control it.
Let me pause it one more time. No, it shouldn't have been done because it didn't need to be done. But the president is the reason that it had to be done because he's a fucking moron. From day one, I'm going to start shutting down drilling, do everything I can to destroy the fuel industry. We have nothing in place to replace it, but we're still going to drive it into the ground. Situation happens. Oh my gosh. Why don't I have any fucking fuel? The war in Ukraine. Again, fuck the war in Ukraine. Fuck those people. Fuck what's going on with them and the Russians. That is their shit. That shouldn't affect us when we have the ability to take care of our own fucking shit. Let's continue.
If there's nothing we can do to control it, how did releasing oil from the SPRO reduce the cost?
It reduced the cost marginally, but the price was
I don't care if it's
at elevated
marginal or
levels.
not, but it reduced the cost. The point is that we can do something about it because, sir, in your testimony, you say that we can't drill our way to to energy security, but clearly we can, because we can influence the global market. That's exactly what just happened, and you just admitted to it. So what we're here to
Because
talk
we
about is the
did.
Strategic Petroleum Reserve and what it's used for. Do you know what it's used for? Do you know why it was designed? Do you know the definition, why we have a Strategic Petroleum Reserve?
We have the reserve to insulate the U.S. from these types of energy
Wait for
shocks
it.
in times of crisis.
In times of crisis, emergency, national security emergency, and natural disaster. What national emergency was occurring that required the release of so much, or literally any, of the SPRO? What national emergency was occurring during the Biden administration that required us to do that?
If I recall, there was a war in Ukraine.
And that's a national emergency for the United States of America. Did it imperil the United States of America's ability to drill its own oil, produce its own fossil fuels, refine them, and get them to market?
The president made a judgment that
just answer that question.
the
Did it
war in
imperil-
Ukraine was driving up costs for oil to the extent to which it would mandate or even lead him to make the decision to make the release.
Was it an emergency?
It was a global it was a global energy crisis. This is well established. Are we
No, it's
debating the
not,
facts
sir.
here?
You can't say it was well established when it's not
There
well
was a
established. You
global
also say,
record costs in
sir,
in
reclaiming
energy
my time.
globally,
What
record costs in
established
food
facts do
prices
you have?
globally.
You say that wind and solar are by far the most cost-effective sources of energy on the planet, and you say it's an established fact. What are those established facts, and who established?
I invite you to read the footnote and source for that claim
Well, just
in my
tell me.
testimony.
This is your testimony. You just tell me and tell us what the established facts are.
Renewables, particularly wind and solar, are the most cost-efficient and cost-effective means of producing energy
Says who?
on this
Says
planet.
who? Says who?
Says physics.
No.
Says
Who's the person?
scientists, says engineers.
Cite the study, sir.
Give me a moment. I'm going to look at the report that I cited and give.
Give me a second. I'm going to look at the report that I cited. You're the one who presented it. You should have this one ready to go. But again, I mean, the representative from Alaska, recently did a statement and pointed out that unions, all the Republicans, he presented something to the White House, literature, paper, a letter. And everybody in fucking Alaska, in the place that they want to drill, has agreed. Even the heads of the tribes have signed on to this. They want this. The only thing holding it up is the president. And that whole thing is being held up, since the beginning by the president. Mind you, as well, more executive orders have been signed against the state of Alaska than any other state. We're not talking like 10, 12. We're talking somewhere between 30 and 40 against Alaska. Mostly stifling Alaska's production, basically keeping them from being able to supply the United States, the lower 48, with the fuel that it has buried underneath its ground. It'd be different if there was huge pushback, but the people that are there, and this is their home, their space, their land, they said, yes, we want to do this. There's not a lot in Alaska. We want to keep it pristine. But at the same time, if we can do this safely, and they agree to it, let them do it. It reduces the United States' need to be dependent on other countries. And that's exactly what you want. If you want to reduce the United States' need to be dependent on other countries, this is what you do. And by doing that, if you want to keep trying to create more renewables, more sustainable energy sources and whatnot, this gives you the ability to do it because you are insulated from the robo market, as the jackhole said. So, but that's the thing about it, and the reality is that you have people who have the best intentions, but they have no follow through because they don't know what to do. They have ideas, but they don't know how to put them into action. They want somebody else to put them into action. They don't want to come up with a way to make it work. You know, we have the idea, do it. It's just, like I said, with the whole climate shit, you know, with dealing with the little weasel that's been traveling a road pretending to get arrested, is that, you know, you're loud and you're shouting, you're talking. Well, what's your solution? I mean, you know, you've had tons of time. People have had tons of time. And the same people that keep screaming about the shit every fucking year, every fucking decade, have done nothing to push forward on their own fucking agenda. That's the wild part about it, is that the people that want it are doing nothing to make it happen, but literally trying to find ways. And it comes back to the left, thinking that they should be allowed to decide what to do with other people's shit. Because they don't want to come up with, they don't want to innovate, but they want to tell people who are doing other things what they should be doing. Well, why don't you do it? And then those people will either jump on board, or if not, and what you're doing is more successful, you will put them out of business and you will prove your point. You shouldn't be trying to rely on somebody else to prove your point for you, because you're never going to get anywhere, because they're not going to do it in the way. The only way you're going to be able to get them to do it is to force them to do it. And that's the problem with what's happening. And so, you know, they're trying to force it now. And because of that, you see exactly the results that it's been having. You know, if you enjoy these outrageous energy prices, these outrageous prices on goods and services, yes, they're going up because the cost of fuel is going up. The lower the supply, the higher the price. Things move on trains. Things move by truck. America's moved by the trucking industry. Diesel, fuel moves these things. But I thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.